Hello everyone. Today we are going to see an interesting poem. The title of the poem is The Grumble Family. It was written by Lucy Maud Montgomery. Before getting to the topic, first I will explain about the poetess. Students, what is mean by poetess? Poetess means a female poet. L.M. Montgomery, that is Lucy Maud Montgomery, was born in Clifton on November 30, 1874 and died on 24th April 1942 in Toronto. There is no doubt that she is Canada's most widely read author. When Montgomery was only 21 months old, her mother died of tuberculosis. Then her father remarried by leaving her in the care of her mother's parents. As a child living with an elderly couple, Montgomery found companionship in her imagination, nature, books and writing. When she was 9, she began writing poetry and keeping a journal. In 1905, she wrote her first and most famous novel, Anne of Green Gables, which became an instant bookseller. She published 20 novels, 530 short stories, 500 poems and 30 essays. Her notable works are Anne of Green Gables, Rilla of Ingleside and Emily of New Moon. A prolific writer. Here, prolific means creative. So, a creative writer, Montgomery published over 100 stories between 1897 and 1907. Montgomery's work, diaries and letters have been read and studied by scholars and readers worldwide. Montgomery was famous for her simple and meaningful verses. This poem is an apt example for it. Before I start the poem, I would like to ask you a few questions. Students, have you ever heard the word grumble? It is a common word used by all people. It is used by me, by you, by your parents, by your friends, by your relatives, or by anybody in the world. Then what is grumble? It is a complaint about something in a bad-tempered way, that is, complaining or murmuring about something. Students, why do we grumble? When we are not satisfied in life, we grumble. When we face problems in life, we grumble. Not only for that, even for petty things, we grumble. For example, when we are in traffic jam, we grumble. When there is no power supply, we grumble. So, grumble never ends. This poem is the best example for grumble. This poem is not only an example for grumble, this is also an example of pessimistic thought of a family. I will give you an example for it. Students, look at this picture. What do you see in the picture? A glass with half-filled water. I asked the same question to two persons. One may say that glass is half filled water. The other may say that the glass is half empty. The person who says that the glass with half filled water is a optimistic person who thinks everything in a positive way. The other person who says that glass is half empty is a pessimistic person who thinks everything in a negative way. So this family also focus on all the wrongs, grumble about everything. Students, now let's see the introduction to the poem. The Grumble Family is a beautiful poem written by Lucy Montgomery. She is famous for her simple and meaningful lines. This poem is written in a very humorous way and talks about a family who stays on the complaining street. They always grumble at everything they see. The poem throws light on the people who always complain about whatever happens in life. Also people who mingle with them to become grumblers. So, she asks the readers to keep away from those grumblers as far as possible. Students, let me tell you the gist of the poem. There lives a family on a complaining street. Nobody likes to talk or mingle with because they always complain about everything. Their only focus is to find wrong in everything. They are not satisfied with anything. So the poet advises the readers to keep our feet away from the Grumble family. Now we are going to discuss the poem in detail. Let me read the poem first and start the explanation. The Grumble Family. It was written by Lucy Montgomery. There is a family nobody likes to meet. They live, it is said, on complaining street in the city of never or satisfied, the river of discontent beside. They growl at that and they growl at this. Whatever comes, there is something amiss, and whether their station be high or humble, they are all known by the name of Grumble. The weather is always too hot or cold. Summer and winter alike they scold. Nothing goes right with the folks you meet down on that gloomy complaining street. They growl at the rain and they growl at the sun. In fact, their growling is never done, and if everything pleased them, there isn't a doubt they would growl that they had nothing to grumble about. But the curiousest thing is that not one of the same can be brought to acknowledge his family name, for never a grumbler will own that he is connected with it at all. You see, the worst thing is that if anyone strays among them too long, he will learn their ways, and before he dreams of the terrible jumble, he is adopted into the family of Grumble. And so it were wisest to keep our feet from wandering into complaining street, and never to growl whatever we do, lest we be mistaken for grumblers too. Let us learn to walk with a smile and a song, no matter if things do sometimes go wrong. and then be our station high or humble, we will never belong to the family of Grumble. Students, now let us discuss the poem in detail. The Grumble Family. It was written by Lucy Maud Montgomery. There is a family nobody likes to meet. They live, it is said, on Complaining Street, in the city of never or satisfied, the river of discontent beside. Here, discontent means dissatisfaction with one's circumstances. Here in the first stanza, the poet says about a family which always grumble about everything, so it is nicknamed as Grumble Family. Even the street is nicknamed as Complaining Street because the Grumble family lives in that street. In the third and fourth line, the poet says about the quality of the family. They live in the city of never are satisfied because the people in the city are never are satisfied with anything, so it is named as never are satisfied. It is beside the river of discontent. Here, discontent means dissatisfaction. They growl at that and they growl at this. Whatever comes, there is something amiss, and whether their station be high or humble, they are all known by the name of Grumble. Here, growl means make a low, guttural sound in the throat. In other words, growl means to make a low, rough sound, usually in anger. Amiss means not quite right. In other words, wrong or not as expected. Station means social status. Humble means having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's importance. Grumble means a complaint about something in a bad-tempered way. Then the second stanza says about the reality of the family. The Grumble family always grumble at everything. They focused. Whatever they see or whatever they come across, they find something wrong in it and start to grumble about it. Here, in the third line, the poet talks about the station. Here, station means status of a person. Status is very important for a person. The society react depends on the status. The people, those who are in high status, are treated well, respected and honored by everyone. The people, those who are in lower status, are ill-treated. Here, the poet says that the people in the street never bother about the status. They never mind it is whether they are in high or lower status. They continue to grumble about, so they are familiar by the name Grumble Family. The weather is always too hot or cold. Summer and winter alike they scold. Nothing goes right with the folks you meet down on that gloomy complaining street. Here, folk means people in general. Gloomy means to appear depressing or frightening. So, in this third stanza, the poet says about the nature of the family. The weather is too hot, the family grumbles about it. Even the weather is too cold also, they grumble about it. Students, you all know there are differences in summer and winter. Summer is very hot and winter is very cold, but this family treats both the seasons alike and scold about it. If you have the chance to meet the people, those who are living down on that gloomy complaining street, you find nothing right in that. That means everything wrong. Here, the poet uses the word gloomy to describe the sad mood of the family. Here, the poet uses the term gloomy to describe the sad mood of the people in the street because they are always focused by the Grumble family. Their mistakes are always identified by the Grumble family, so that the poet uses the word grumble here. They growl at the rain and they growl at the sun. In fact, their growling is never done, and if everything pleased them, there isn't a doubt they would growl that they had nothing to grumble about. Here, the poet says that during the rainy days, the family grumbles about the rain. Even if it is a hot sunny day also, they grumble about it. It is a fact that their grumbling never ends because grumbling is their habit. They are accustomed to it. Even if everything is pleased them also, there isn't no doubt they find something to grumble about. On one particular day, everything pleased them. Everything is perfect. They could not find anything wrong. Even then, they worry and grumble that they had nothing to worry about. But the curiousest thing is that not one of the same can be brought to acknowledge his family name, for never a grumbler will own that he is connected with it at all. You see, here curiousest means the strangest or the most unusual. Acknowledge means accept or admit the existence or truth of. In this stanza, the poet asks the readers to notice the strangest thing. Curiousest means strangest thing about that family. None of the family members has the knowledge to accept that his family name is Grumble family. That is, as a grumbler, he never believed that he is connected with that family at all. Here, the meaning of the word acknowledge means accept or admit. Grumbler means one who grumbles about everything. The worst thing is that if anyone stays among them too long, he will learn their ways, and before he dreams of the terrible jumble, he is adopted into the family of Grumble. Here, terrible means extremely bad or serious. Jumble means bad behavior, attitude, and manners of the family. So, the worst thing about that family is if anyone stays with them for a long time, they themselves learn their ways of grumble. Here, will learn their ways means they learn the grumbling ways, and before he dreams of the terrible jumble, Here, jumble represent the bad behavior, attitude, and manners of the family before the person as realizes the terrible jumble, that is, bad attitudes of the people, he himself become one of the members of the family. So, the worst thing is they are also adopted into the family, and so it were wisest to keep our feet from wandering into complaining state and never to growl whatever we do, lest we be mistaken for grumblers too. Here, wandering means walking or moving in a leisurely or aimless way. Lest means in case. Here, the poet asks the readers to be wise enough to keep our feet away from the family, because without aim, if we step into the family, we should face the consequences. We will also learn their ways of grumbling. So, whatever we do means, whether it is best or worst, possible or impossible, perfect or imperfect, whatever we do, whatever the result is, we should not grumble about it. If we do so, we will be mistaken as the grumblers. Let us learn to walk with a smile and a song, no matter if things do sometimes go wrong, and then be our station high or humble, we will never belong to the family of grumble. Here, station means position. So the poet finally concludes that whatever problem we face, that it is right or wrong, we should learn to walk with a smile and a song. That means we should learn to live our life happily, whether we are in a higher or lower position. We should not bother about it. We should not never belongs to the family of grumble. If we keep on grumbling about everything, we also become a member of the grumble family. Whatever situation we are, we should look into the positive ways. If we do so, we can lead our life happily. So always be an optimistic. Students, now let's see the summary of this poem. A beautiful poem, The Grumble Family, was written by Lucy Maud Montgomery, who is famous for her simple yet meaningful lines. She, in a very humorous way, talks about a family who strays on the complaining street. They always grumble at everything they see. In this poem, the poetess tells about a family who find fault and growl with everything. Whatever that comes in their way, they would complain and feel dissatisfied. The family is well known by the name of Grumble. They always behave like a thunder. Whatever may happen among them, they complain everything, whether the sun rising, about the rain, or summer or winter. Nothing is right for them in their gloomy complaining state. If everything seems perfect, they still grumble that there is nothing to grumble for. Whoever goes and stays with them for a few days, they also become like the family of Grumble. Better to stay away from them. The poem talks about not being pessimistic in any situation. Nothing is perfect in this world. Everyone has positives and negatives. One should be optimistic and accept things. This poem gives us a clear picture that how we should behave. When we read this poem, we have to look into ourselves and ask if we belong to this Grumble family. Appreciation. Students, when we learn poem, we should know the poetic devices or figures of speech employed in the poem. Authors often use figures of speech in both literature and poetry to enhance their writings. Here, authors refers to writers, poets, essayists, poetess, etc. Figures of speech present ordinary things in new or unusual ways. They communicate ideas that go beyond the words' usual literal meanings. Here, literal means accurate or correct meanings. First, let's see the definition of figures of speech. A figure of speech is a literary device in which language is used in an unusual or figured way in order to produce a stylistic effect. Now, let's see what is a figure of speech. A word or phrase used in a non-literal sense so that the speech or writing becomes more persuasive, vivid, and relatable. Here, persuasive means believable, vivid means bright, relatable means related or important. So, what is a figure of speech? A word or phrase used in a non-literal sense so that the speech or writing becomes more believable, bright, and relatable, which means related or important. Students, now let's see the literary devices in the poem. First, let's see about Anaphora. Anaphora is a technique where several phrases or verses in a poem begin with the same word or words. So, in this poem, line number 5, they crawl at that and they crawl at this. Here we see they crawl has been repeated in the same line. So it is anaphora. Next, line number 13, they crawl at the rain and they crawl at the sun. Here also they have the repetition of they crawl. So, they crawl is repeatedly used in the two lines. So, it is an anaphora. Next, we are going to learn about epithet. Epithet is an adjective or phrase expressing a quality as characteristic of a person or the thing mentioned. Here we can see in the poem line number 2, they live, it is said, on complaining street. So students, what type of street it is? Yes, complaining street. It is an adjective. Here, complaining is a quality given to the street, so it is an epithet. Next, line number 12, down on that gloomy, complaining steed. Here also, complaining is an adjective. Then, line number 24, he is adopted into the family of Grumble. So, what type of family it is? Yes, it is a Grumble family. Next, line number 26, from wandering into complaining steeds. So, what type of steed it is? Yes, complaining steed. Here, complaining is an adjective. Here, complaining is a quality given to the steed. So, it is an epithet. Next, line number 32. We will never belong to the family of Grumble. So, what type of family it is? Yes, a Grumble family. Alliteration. First, we have to know what is meant by alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sounds of neighboring words. In other words, alliteration is the repetition of beginning consonant sounds. Now let's identify alliteration. They growl at that and they growl at this. Here, the sound. And whether their station be high or humble, here her sound. And if everything pleased them, there isn't a doubt, here the sound. They would growl that they had nothing to grumble about, here the sound. But the curiousest thing is that not one of the same, here the sound. Among them too long, he will learn their ways, here the sound. And so it were wisest to keep our feet, here the sound. Let us learn to walk with a smile and a song. Here we can see two things, la in the beginning and sir, and then be our station high or humble, here her sound. Next, let's see personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which an idea or thing is given human attributes and or feelings are spoken of as if it were human. In simple words, personification gives human qualities to non-human things. Now let's read these two lines. In the city of never or satisfied, the river of discontent beside. So, a human quality is given to an inanimate and abstract thing is personification. Here, never or satisfied and discontent are the human qualities given to the city and the river. So, both are personification. Next, we are going to learn about oxymoron. An oxymoron is a figure of speech that combines two seemingly contradictory or opposite ideas to create a poetic effect. Now, let's read the given line and whether their station be high or humble. Here, high or humble is oxymoron. It is a combination of two opposite words. Now we are going to see rhyming words and rhyme scheme. Now let's read this stanza. The weather is always too hot or cold. Summer and winter alike they scold. Nothing goes right with the folks you meet. down on that gloomy complaining steed. Students, here pick out the rhyming words and identify the rhyme scheme of the above lines. So, the rhyming words are cold and scold, meat and steed. The rhyme scheme is AABB. Students, I hope you all understood this poem clearly. Just read the poem once. Thank you, students. We will meet in the next class.